After Before. By the Philosophical Bachelor. 5 friends gathered on the occasion of Jamie's 50th birthday. Not one to neglect the significance of time, Jamie booked a top-notch restaurant with enough stars to warrant a reservation 6 months in advance. He had only been there once himself, when his agent, Cynthia, hired the place for the launch of his 3rd novel. Jamie guessed Cynthia had expected it to be a hit, since they opened what felt like endless bottles of wine, each costing over $1,000. The guests were a stuffy set, comprising ladies and gentlemen of the intelligentsia, some diplomats, members of the press, and even a couple of politicians. One and all demanded selfies and autographs in editions hot off the press. Jamie obliged and threw in an impromptu book reading for good measure. The launch was a smashing success, and pictures of the event graced the society pages of every newspaper and magazine worth mentioning in the country, though no one had yet had the time, or the interest, to read the book. Jamie had requested a private room for his party. His fame can open any door worth opening, and even though he rang only the night before, the maitre d' was falling over himself to create room for Jamie and friends. The waiters were attentive, with each course served promptly as the previous course was finished. The gang had not caught up in a while, and this kept the conversation lively. Everyone had their own lives, some with families of their own, some working themselves to an early grave, while others were abroad for pleasure. Jamie was sometimes at a loose end, but to gather the group was not easy, requiring coordination at least some weeks in advance. They were now sitting pretty with their dessert, coffee, liquor, and cheese. The waiters had left the room now that all the food had been served. De Bing clamored, "Speech, speech." The boys banged their feet on the floor while cheering, just like the old days. Jamie laughed. "I have been mulling over what to give each of you who has so graciously attended my half-centenary." Fabian lowered his eyes. "There is of course no need. It is your birthday, and it is right that it is us who give presents to you, and not the other way round." Jamie turned misty-eyed. "Well, you know me, always one to invert traditions. I am so grateful for your friendship over the years. Who would have thought that 3 decades later, we'd still be together?" These were his army mates, and they had been through some tough times together. It wasn't all cheery and supportive. Arguments, fights, cold wars, hot wars were the order of the day in those 2.5 years of what Jamie considered mostly to be an unpleasant waste of time. Well, to be fair, there were some good moments. The trip abroad for training crowned their entire service. He could still see the fireworks they played on the banks of the river, something not possible in Singapore. Good times. The mood turned sentimental as they became like old men, reminiscing the days gone by. "Anyway, given that I have now become a somewhat accomplished writer," he said, "I had thought to give each of you what may be worth something in the future. Or not. However, if it isn't, well, don't blame me, yeah," he giggled. The group was thunderstruck. Jamie's inventiveness and craft in his fiction writing had elevated the demand for his works through the roof. Even an autographed picture may be worth something in the future, not to mention a completely new and unpublished work. He circled the table, handing each man a large white envelope with their names printed on its front. They all held on to it, not daring to open it without permission. "Okay, please go ahead," Jamie said. Abdul couldn't believe his eyes. It was a short story entitled On How to Win, about 10 pages long, double-spaced, and printed only on one side. Each page was annealed, and Jamie had signed off at the end also. He found a little note that was not part of the story. "Dear Abdul, I want to thank you for all the years of your generous friendship. I hope you enjoy my little tale. It is yours. You are the first person to read it. I hereby give you permission to do with it as you will. You possess all rights to it. Sell it, keep it, burn it, copy it, or give it away. It is entirely up to you. With love, Jamie." Abdul tried to mask his tears. The others had similar notes in their packages. As each left the venue that night, they took care not to crease even the envelope. Each knew they were sitting on a veritable treasure. Jaya woke up the next morning, and, even before brushing his teeth, he sat in bed and arranged the papers across the bedspread. His husband, Tobias, joined him. The 7 pieces of paper were lined up in order, forming a rectangle of sorts, with the little note bringing up the end. Tobias had already begun poring over the first page. They got to the end at the same time and spontaneously jumped out from under the sheets into the still, cool air. Hugging each other, they did a tiny dance of joy. Oh my God, the story was so weird and yet so imaginative, like a Borges resurrected from the dead, exclaimed Tobias. The detective was a savant, but even in this small tale of police and thief, the couple could feel its emotional resonance and philosophical profundity. The timing could not be better. Fabian was in some serious debt which was getting increasingly pressing to repay. The loan sharks don't take kindly to missed payments, and the spiraling interest load was becoming intolerable. He was not poor, but he could not easily flog off his stuff. He had already read his story, 2 cups of well-steeped tea, after he got back from dinner, and boy was it magnificent. Such genius. Fabian admired the man, but it felt almost unbearable to compare their two situations. Jamie was on top of the world while he was in shit. He knew the story was gold, but he needed the money desperately. He rang up Jamie's agent, Cynthia. As news of Jamie's birthday celebration got out, congratulatory notes and well wishes came in from fans, admirers, and fellow writers. A paparazzi, DeBing had promised not to scoop the event, though Jamie gave him permission to run a special on his career with an exclusive interview. What are friends for? The buzz was still alive when 2 Cups hit the newsstand, published in the latest edition of Savoir Faire. Cynthia owed the editor of the fashion magazine a favor, and now it has been paid for more than in full. She had bought the story from Fabian for $10,000 and sold it to the monthly for double that. But the big winner really was Savoir Faire. They sold out worldwide and had to do a triple print to cope with the demand for Jamie Toe's latest work. Jaya was a practical man. Tobias and him were of the same mind: sell off the story before Jamie's fame cools. Strike when the iron is hot. Take the money and run. They tried to rationalize what they were thinking of doing with clichés. Touch and go. It hardly even made sense. When they learned that 2 Cups fetched 10 grand, they were glad they were just that wee bit hesitant. Jaya does recognize Jamie's genius, but could it last? When is Jamie going to flame out and vanish? He already had 3 books out there, but can he keep it up? He knew the man for years now, which is precisely why he thinks selling makes sense. Jamie was a fickle character. He started out as an engineer, after studying at Cambridge and graduating with the highest honors. Just a decade later, he quit that and took up music. When he got tired of that, he went back to school. Who knows when he will get sick of writing? The man was not a hack, but neither was he the kind who stuck with things. But Jaya knew he had to bide his time. At least he knew how much the papers were worth. Even in its brevity, the story, Don't Tell Me What to Do, was top-notch. So many twists and turns. How the hell did Jamie even manage to think all that shit up? The man was really a nut, but one heck of a fantastic nut. A year later, when Don't Tell Me hit the stands, this time in Playboy, Cynthia had paid $60,000. Jaya was a smart one, you must give him that. He created a bidding war between Cynthia and another book agent, Dennis, and before she knew it, she was screaming numbers she didn't even expect to pay. Playboy only paid her $40,000, and she was now out of pocket $20,000. That bloody bitch, she muttered to herself. The signed manuscript of 2 Cups still sat in her drawer, under lock and key. She had been planning to later auction off all 4 original manuscripts at Christie's as a set that would be worth a pretty penny. A serious fortune so long as Jamie kept churning out the good stuff. She figured that DeBing was sure to sell at some point since he was only a reporter. But Abdul was like a prince. He made a fortune from stocks and didn't need the money. Ah fuck. She's a businesswoman. Losing money is just not going to go down well with her boss. She was certain she could fetch the outstanding 2 grand she lost on Don't Tell Me with the manuscript of 2 Cups at auction. And then she'd sell Don't Tell Me's manuscript later also. Man, she had better keep Jamie happy and writing. This all can only work if he remained the talk of the town. Abdul may be as rich as a prince, but he was also at heart a deeply practical man. He liked Jamie, they all did, but he had no fight with making more money. In fact, he liked making money a lot, which explains his success on the bourses. With the exorbitant sums the stories had been fetching, he'd be a fool to hold on, just like one would be a fool for holding on to stocks that had a massive run-up. He was a believer in market cycles. That was how he made his money. Buy low, sell high was what he did extremely well, buying the cycle when it heads down and then upselling it when it turned up. Rinse and repeat. While he never hit a home run on any stock, what he made was enough to buy him a slew of properties across the globe. His son was going to London to study next month, and God knows, the fees had gone through the roof. He didn't want to sell anything at the moment to raise cash since it just wasn't the right point on the cycle. But after having read and truly enjoyed Jamie's tale on how to win, he was ready to let it go. "Cynthia, darling, wasn't it me who introduced you to Jamie? You know you must give me an excellent price just on that alone. And you know me, I'd always check in with the competition. $80,000? Let's make it an even 100 and I won't have to call my good friend, Dennis, the way Jaya did." "How did I know about that?" "You know how I always do my homework, Cynthia." 100 then? Good work. At yours or mine. He put down the phone. His heart was thumping hard and he had a bit of an erection. Making money turned him on. Bing was doing well. He had a nose for news and he used it well. He loved reporting and had a custom-made poster on the wall of his office that said journalism is more than a job. IT is a way of life. He got it made really for the interns. Those buggers needed inspiration. He was in an introspective mood that day. Thinking back, Jamie was never much of a fighter. Not then, not now. When they met during basic training in the army, Jamie was being picked on. They weren't even from the same platoon, but Bing stubbed his cigarette out and went over to kick ass. Later, the 5 of them were posted to the same unit. Now that's called fate, though they didn't quite get along. What could one expect? Throw a bunch of young men into a bullpen and expect that they could march in step? All that punishment disguised as PT and extra duties, but also the sharing of the same bunk made them inseparable by the end of their service. Bing recalled how the men used to make fun of Jamie. He always spoke in complete sentences, even when he was scolding them. They said he was too smart, too ongmo pie for them. Jamie was, of course, completely out of his element. He was from the good schools, with stellar grades, and while he thought he knew the world, he really knew nothing. He did learn fast, though. And damn, was he fit. He had since gained a few pounds, but that's aging for you. Bing had read If You Must Go, Just Say Goodbye multiple times over the years. He must be getting old because each time he reads it, tears well up. On How to Win, 2 cups of well-steeped tea, Don't Tell Me What to Do, and finally If You Must Go, Just Say Goodbye. That is the correct sequence of the stories and not in the order it had been released. He is the only one who has read them all. The more astute of Jamie's readers realized after the release of the 3rd story that they kind of were linked. They at first understood each as separate stories until Professor Chan from the university's literature department not only pointed out the right sequence of the 3, but how, like a symphony, the music had not returned to its tonic key, leaving its audience hanging unsatisfied. The public didn't even know of the existence of a 4th story. Jamie had intended it as a quartet. Bing knew he was sitting on a goldmine. He could release the 4 stories together as a collection, and he'd be sure to strike pay dirt even after buying the rights from the various publications. After Jamie had passed away in a cruel car accident on his way to Kuala Lumpur, his popularity only increased. He is now recognized as the most important author, thinker, in the country, and his works are being studied in schools. But even since Bing made editor, he found that his killer instinct had taken a back seat. His role was now more to guide and nurture the next generation. He still knew what was hot and what was not, but he hasn't gone out to chase a story in years. He tried to consider how Jamie would have wanted it. Actually, he thought that Jamie must have been disappointed at how quickly the guys had let go of their stories. When Abdul sold, not even 3 years had passed since Jamie's 50th birthday party. Bing set the matter aside as something to decide on another day. Years flew by. Jamie's works had been translated into over 50 languages, with his collected works found in both public and private libraries around the world. His writings were well on their way to becoming classics. Talented writers had tried their hand at penning the missing concluding installment of what has become known as the Toe tetralogy. But none could match the true final story. De Bing had passed away childless. No one even knew that the last tale was called If You Must Go, Just Say Goodbye. The legend grew. Now, all that is left for me to do is go and write them all.